How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Alan Staley, and this is Slingin Dirt with Staley. On this week's episode, the story of a young man chasing his dream, driver of the Dillon Risk Management JR1 Young's Racing MDR number 33M Sprint Car from Sunnyvale, California, Mason Daniel. Mason joins me on the show to talk about his inspiring story of uprooting at the age of 17, graduating from high school early, moving halfway across the country just to compete full-time at the famed Knoxville Raceway and establish his race team right here in the Midwest. And it didn't take long for Mason to do just that, notching 11 top 5 finishes in 2018. Along the way, he picked up his first ever career 360 victory at Knoxville in early June. And then he claimed his first ever ASCS sanctioned win at the historic Half Mile, the State Fair Speedway in Sedalia, Missouri, later that month. Daniel proved that he was a front runner in only his rookie year in a full-size sprint car, placing 8th in points in the ASCS Warrior region on just a limited schedule. Mason is taking off in Missouri, where he left in California. This former West Coast Rookie of the Year has over a dozen feature victories and over 25 podium finishes in various micro and outlaw 600cc classes. In 2017, he didn't finish outside the top 10 in any race that he entered into. Combine that kind of talent with the former Silver Crown champion crew chief in Tanner Swanson, and the results are rather impressive and very apparent. Mason and I chat about the mindset needed to compete, what he does to keep the mood light around the shop, and how he managed to gain a racing icon not only as a mentor, but as a friend. Plus, Mason's Mount Rushmore of racing, how he's adjusted to the Missouri lifestyle, and more on an all-new Slingin Dirt with Staley. Special guest Mason Daniel, starting right about now. Hey guys, Alan again. A couple of quick editor notes before the episode gets going. It was recorded at Sedalia while waiting for a storm to pass, so my apologies for some audio issues. Recorded in an RV during a downpour, it can be a little troublesome. The quote-unquote that guy in this episode that neither Mason nor I could think of, well, his name is James Hunt. This will make sense by the end of the episode, I promise. A huge shout out to all the online love and support that the show's been shown over the past year. It's pretty awesome. A special thanks again goes out to Destin's grandma up in Nebraska and Mr. Howard out in Pennsylvania. It was great hearing from you guys. I truly can't thank everybody enough. All the feedback is just astonishing. And finally, there's a little bonus clip that I tagged on at the end of this episode where my lovely and wonderful wife plays her own game of how to spot the sprint car driver, and this prompts Mason to share insight on a driver's love of foot apparel. Needless to say that this one was a fun episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. Without any further ado, Mason Daniel.
I didn't know anything about racing. I didn't grow up around racing. So my cousin's uncle drove all types of stuff in California. He drove IMCA, a sprint car, midget, and micro, lots of different types of cars. And when I was 13 years old, my grandpa bought a 69 Chevelle. And, it was worn down, and, the engine needed some work to it. And so my grandpa made the bet with me. He said, hey, if you can restore it, if you work on it, then I'll let you drive when you're 16. And so, of course, at that age, I loved that. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do it. So then, at the same time, my cousin's uncle was there at Easter with us doing the races. And my dad, he thought that the Chevelle had a big motor in it. It had because the guy we bought it from was an engine builder for drag motors. So they thought it had a big motor, and my dad made the joke. He said, you can't drive the Chevelle until you drive one of Chris's race cars. And so, at this time, I was like, all right, I don't know anything about it, but, I'm not going to pass up the opportunity.
Accepted, yeah.
Challenge accepted. So, after that, I went out the next weekend, the very next weekend, and got in a micro for the first time at just, a guy had, a track at his house. And, I was terrible. I couldn't figure out shifting in the micro. You have to shift.
Yep.
Oh, I was bad. I was very bad at that. And then I figured it out towards, more I got to run it, and then I ended up purchasing those 2 micros.
How long did you run the micros?
So I ran about 5 races when I first got them at the end of the season, and just, we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so then I ran micros, I think a total for 3.5 seasons.
Yeah.
I got a concussion during one of the seasons, and I had to just take the rest off. I started racing a midget at my last season along with doing micro stuff.
Kind of doing a dual.
Yeah, doing a dual circuit. Anytime. Well, actually, I got really sick last year during a weekend. And I was in the hospital for some stuff, and I missed a points race at Lemoore local track. And so we were going points racing. So then after that happened, we just were kind of like, all right, well, that's a Saturday night. We can go midget racing now, so we don't have to be at a micro track. So that's what we ended up doing a lot of Saturday nights at Lemoore. We instead went to like Placerville and Bakersfield and stuff to race the midget.
And how did this whole season come about? How did the Danny Lasowski deal? What brought you to the center of the country from all the way out in California?
Yeah, so when I got into racing, I became friends with Giovanni Scelzi and Dominic Scelzi.
Right.
And got close with them. And so last year, when we knew we were selling off the micros and going to race midgets and sprint cars, we kind of started gearing up to run sprint cars. So we purchased motors and purchased chassis, wings, something like that, and kind of just start building. And at the same time, Trophy Cup was like 2 weeks out. And Gary Scelzi, he needed to have 2 cars entered because Gio was driving for Roth at the time.
Right.
And so Mr. Scelzi wanted two cars entered. And Trophy Cup had a format where you couldn't race this year unless you had cars entered last year. So Danny and Mr. Scelzi go back
years.
Yeah. So Mr. Scelzi brought in Danny to drive the car, but he still didn't have a motor. Their motor was back in Indiana or something like that, and I wasn't going to get done in time.
Right.
So we just said, well, you can use our motor because it's sitting at our shop. If I can just learn from Danny or just go hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
And so we gave them our motor, and they put it in Danny's car. And then the first couple of days of the track, I show up to just work on the cars.
Yeah.
And Danny likes to know who's touching his cars.
Exactly. You want to know.
Yeah. So me and him just started talking and hanging out, and just then kind of at the end of those 3 days, he's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I got some sprint cars. That's my motor, so I'm just gonna run around California and midget sprint cars and just see how far I can make it." And he's like, "No, that's a terrible idea." He said, "You shouldn't do that." He's like, "Instead, you should come back to the Midwest out here in Missouri, and you can use my shop, and we'll race full time out here."
Nice.
And so at that point, I was 17 years old, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, why not, right?"
It's the dude.
Yeah, it's the dude. Yeah, like I was in senior year of high school, so I just went into independent studies and graduated early. Then I went to Florida with the Brown team, then Vegas with the Brown team. So I got to see kind of the World of Outlaw world,
behind the scenes access.
Behind the scenes, with the professional teams. And then that kind of gave me an inside view of how our team was going to be ran when I came out here.
Why the number? Is the big significance there just the credit to the dude?
No, I had that number in micros.
Really?
When I first started racing, my number's always been 33M.
Why is that?
Because I think 3 was taken.
3 was taken, and just double it up, put the M on it.
Yep, double it up, put the M on it, yeah. Yeah, no, when I first started racing, my number was always 33M. So, when I came back and he's like, "What's your number?" I'm like, 33M. He's like, "Wow."
Kind of a good coincidence there.
Yeah.
Do you have any race day rituals, anything that you have to do, or any superstitions?
No, I'm not really a superstitious guy or anything like that.
And how do you deal with the internal fear? Because let's face it, the sport's very dangerous. You're on that edge of out of control. How do you deal with that? Do you just kind of block it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone kind of says, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. I think there's definitely safety measures that the chassis companies and the drivers can take to protect themselves.
Make themselves as safe as possible.
As safe as possible. So, for instance, I'm not allowed to get in a car if it does not have a halo. All my cars have to have halos on them.
Good.
No matter what I drive. Midgets, micros, anything like that.
That's a good thing, in my opinion.
That's what a rule my mom set. She said, "All right, you can race wherever you want, but every car you get in has to have a halo."
Got to have rules.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so then there's that, and then obviously I know drivers, old, like Danny and old school drivers don't wear their Hans device. And even some of the outlaws, it's a rule in outlaws to have your Hans device on, but it doesn't have to be hooked up.
Yeah.
So I think there's stuff like that you can, make they have to do, and they could, maybe prevent some injuries that happen.
I agree with that. What's going on inside your mind when you're sitting in the staging area getting ready to take the track?
I'm thinking a lot about track conditions and what, like the start, where I start, who am I behind, do I know what they normally do?
Yeah.
If I know I start behind a guy who goes to the bottom, can I get around him at the top? Just kind of think about trying to play out the first couple laps, I think.
And then that's kind of what you're doing in the parade lap too. Are you looking at the track conditions, how it's
most
shaping
of the time
up?
it's during the parade lap is I try to get on the gas, test your car, and see if it hooks up where you want it to hook up, and just make sure that, when you go into the first corner, you can have somewhat of a feeling of what it's going to be like. So you can kind of see how loose or tight your car is going to be.
What's the biggest negative of racing?
I mean, I wouldn't really say there is one. I mean, the financial aspect is obviously the biggest negative.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think, me and my crew don't really... I mean, wrecking, obviously, that's a bad one.
That's a bad one, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I guess I can say that, we had a bad weekend 3 weeks ago at US 36 and next out at Knoxville. It's a lot of mind games to racing, too. It's a lot like, all right, you just wrecked 2 cars, each night.
And you kind of get down on yourself.
Yeah. How
do you come back from that? Is it just a mindset, well, I've got the bad out of the way, now it's time for the good?
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot to Dominic Scelzi, and him and my brother have a very similar attitude. Like something bad just happened, well, get over it. It's done.
Yep.
So, I try to, look up to my brother and look up to Dominic of how they handle themselves when something bad happens. They just, put a smile on their face and, get over it.
Well, let's flip side of the coin. What's the biggest positive aspect of our sport?
Oh, I think, the community's a big one, and just, I came out here from California, and I didn't know a soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I moved out here at 17, lived on my own for the first 2 months, and
Didn't
I knew
know
nobody.
Anybody.
Yeah. And, now I'm surrounded by this amazing community that I see at every single track. So I think, that's really cool. I didn't know anybody, and now I can show up to a track and go hang out with guys that I didn't even know. So I think that's awesome.
That is cool. Where does the motivation come from? We're talking hours spent on the road, you're wrenching in the garage during the week in the off season. Why keep doing it?
I think once you start racing, you don't know anything else.
It's just a passion.
It's just I had no clue that I was gonna get hooked into it. Like 4 years ago, you asked me what a sprint car was, I'd be like, I don't know. I have no clue.
And then here you are out here winning races and doing everything that you have done this season, and it's amazing to see. Is there a particular race where everything just lines up and it clicked and you're like, all right?
Oh gosh.
Was it the first one at Knoxville?
That one was, it was weird because we weren't good there when we first went there.
Yeah. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, we weren't good. We ran like 15th or 16th, stuff like that. We weren't good. And then, we finally changed some stuff in the car to make it more comfortable. And then we all of a sudden, we were fast, top 5 in qualifying. And then something happened in the heat. So then was in the back of the A. And then I got made contact with another driver on the front straightaway, and that took us out. So that was it's man, finally kind of confident in the car. And then next weekend we go there and we win a race. So I don't want to say that was a good race. I think the next one, Sedalia, here.
Yeah.
That was a one where I was like, all right, I have more experience of how to lead a race and stuff like that,
and you knew not to show your hand too early. You waited for the time to make the move. Yeah,
it's just waiting on lap traffic and where Tony Bruce was fast last time we were here, and then the next weekend after that we went back to Knoxville. I think after the Sedalia win, and we ended up leading 6 laps or something like that. But it's those restarts got to us, and that's where I don't have enough experience. Danny says, all right, you've won 2 races, that's okay, but he said you have no idea how to lead a race. And it's true, because
it is.
Leading a race and just taking over the lead and going green is completely different.
It's completely different.
And I watch, I'd like to watch, I've watched old videos of Danny, leading races, but another good one is Brian Brown, because Danny's taught him how to lead a race. So at Knoxville, whenever Brown has a yellow and he's leading the race, it's always interesting to see, what he does, because that's something you have to think of.
Yeah. 5 laps left of a race. Do you want to be out front, or do you want to be in that second spot, kind of looking to find out where the fast lane is?
Oh gosh, it just depends how big of a lead I have, or how the track conditions are. I'd say if it's on the top, you're always kind of nervous. 5 laps to go, kind of get slid.
Yeah.
If you're on the bottom and there's nothing up top, it's all right.
Just hug the line.
The bottom. Yeah. So I think it just varies. If it's a half mile, quarter mile, I like to be out front on big tracks. I know if I have, it's harder for them to make up ground.
Yeah. But which do you prefer? Do you prefer the big half miles, or are you more of a short track fan, high bank versus low bank? What's your cup of tea?
My cup of tea is half miles, and or anything bigger than like 3/8.
Bigger than a bull ring, basically.
Bigger than bull rings.
Yeah.
I think my driving style suits them better than small tracks. But I don't care if it's high anked or flat. It's fun either way.
Hollywood is calling. They're making the Mason Daniel movie. Who plays you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know a lot of actors.
Don't know a lot of actors.
I mean, I want to see like Tom Cruise, but he's just like way too cool to play my life.
Is it going to be a comedy, a drama, a love story? What kind of movie are we watching?
Well, you got to have fun.
Yeah.
So it has to be a comedy.
Yeah.
But you got to go through you have to have some seriousness because with racing like that. But then during the week, or in the shop,
the off time,
you gotta have some fun.
Yep. Is there anything in the off time that you do to kind of boost morale around the shop?
It's hard. We work every day 9 to whatever needs to get done.
Yeah.
So this past 3 months coming from nationals, it's been 9 to 6 o'clock at night every day. And so we also me and and the crew guy I brought out from California, Garrett. We live in a house together. And so there's just a lot of, you're not also just, you're fully working on a race team or you're traveling, stuff like that, but you also have to come home and take care of your house.
Yeah.
So me and Garrett, we'll have some nights just video games or something like that.
You
just
got
to just take your mind off racing and stuff like that. Or we'll go to Kansas City and go-karting one night. And, just try to...
So even when you're not racing, you're still racing?
Yeah.
You play video games, I imagine you're racing, playing a video game.
NASCAR or anything like that, Yeah, so we do a lot of that.
Where do you see your racing program progressing towards?
What I'm trying to do, and the team is trying to do, is we're still looking for partners, but we'd like to move towards a full outlaw team. We have a couple 410 shows at the end of this year that we'll be running, and then the plan is right now to start with the Outlaws, or the All-Star Series.
Either or, yeah.
Yeah, well, because All-Star runs first, 3 days in Florida, and then it goes in Outlaws. So we want to go to Florida, and we'll be with the 410 staff for the first 3 weeks there, and then we have a 360 race at East Bay when Outlaws leave and take the week off. Go to Texas Outlaws and the Vegas Outlaws, and then California with the Outlaw swing, and then we'll come back to the Midwest and run some 360 stuff, some 410 stuff, and just try to figure out if we have funding or what we need to do.
Is it going to be straight dirt, or is there any asphalt maybe in your future? Do you see NASCAR on the horizon?
NASCAR is really hard right now. It seems like not a lot of wing guys are really getting the opportunity to go that route. It seems like the route is through Toyota, which is Keith Kuhn's Motorsports.
Right.
And I feel like if you want to go to NASCAR, you're going to need to pay for the Kuhn's ride. Right. And try to get into Toyota that way.
And you kind of, the way that I'm getting it, you'd rather do it yourself.
Yeah, I'd rather own my own team, and I'd rather race with the Outlaws 80 times a year.
Yeah.
That seems like...
to me, that seems like a lot more fun.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And if you're not having fun, like we were hitting on earlier, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?
Yeah. I think, that's a big thing that a lot of these guys need to realize, you're out here racing Midwest, you got to have some fun.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Anybody you want to give a special shout out to, give them thanks for, helping your racing career as awesome as it's been so far?
Yeah, my whole family for just letting me come out here and do this. They've been really supportive of me. My parents come out, they try to, probably once every 2 weeks or so, just depending on the race schedule, they'll be out here. My first crew chief, Tanner Swanson, he helped me, make decisions when I was younger, he's like, all right, I kind of went your route, but he did a lot of non-wing stuff, so it was always cool when I was racing the midget, Tanner's there, so thanks to him, and then Danny, obviously, such a big help, in the shop, and George, his dad, is also, he's at the shop, and he has so much knowledge. Garrett, my crew guys, Landon, Danny's son, who helped us for the season, Roach out in Pennsylvania, he's the crew chief for Big Hot in its car, he's always really nice, and he helps out when he comes around, so.
That's good. It sounds like you got a great core group around you.
Yeah.
And nice. Final question of the show, it's kind of the staple here on the podcast. What is your Mount Rushmore of racing?
Oh, shoot. Danny, he has to be up there.
Yeah. It's like we said, it's the dude.
Yeah, it's the dude. Yeah. Shoot. I don't know a lot of the Formula 1 driver. What's the guy off Rush? Oh, shoot. The blonde. England Formula 1 driver back in the day. Raced with...
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Exactly.
That guy.
That guy, yeah, that guy. And then, who's the other? Steve Kinzer. That's
the king.
another one.
The king.
Yeah. And then I got to do Tanner Swanson.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Because anytime he gets in a Silver Crown pavement car, that's awesome.
Yep.
I'd love to see him. I mean, I've been to a couple races with him, and it's unbelievable the way him and his brother can wheel a Silver Crown car.
Yep. All right, buddy. That's about all the questions I got. Appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I better get out of here before Jude leaves me.
Yeah, Jamie's already waiting in the truck to leave. Already got a message.
Perfect.
Say one thing.
Huh?
Black hat, black shoes.
Yeah. Sprint car driver. It's
Every single Spreaker driver, if you know, it's black hat, black shoes.
Yeah.
I had gray ones on, and my mom came out here so I had these gray ones on for the longest time from California. Like, I wore them to micro races and midget races. They're just kind of like my shoes, right?
Yeah.
My race shoes. And so then about 4 weeks ago, my mom comes out and she throws them away on me. And she doesn't tell me. I get them back out of the trash can, and I continue to wear them. And finally at the Nationals, my dad forces me to go to Des Moines and buy new shoes and wear these. And so then I still have the gray ones, and I went back to California last week just because after Nationals to see them. And my mom stole the shoes and burned them in one of the barrel that we had at our ranch. And so I lost my good pair of shoes.